haven't found an apple, but a tree. These temples hold the earth together like roots. Disturb them, and Haiti falls, or Lisbon, or any other place that the manuscript shows. Shea Cormac, 1758. Hello, and welcome to Visions of the Past. My name is Andrew, and I am the host of this Assassin's Creed lore podcast. This is episode 40, and today we're going to talk about the Seismic Temples. Before we get into what Seismic Temples are within the Assassin's Creed universe, I want to talk about two very real earthquakes that happened in the 1750s that ended up being tied into the gaming storyline of the Seismic Temples. These two earthquakes were the 1751 Port-au-Prince earthquake and the 1755 Lisbon earthquake. Not much is known about the 1751 Port-au-Prince earthquake outside of its epicenter and magnitude. The initial quake at 7:50 a.m. local time on November 21st, 1751, caused a sea wave in the area. There was also a report of an earthquake at the same location on September 15th that year, but it's uncertain whether it's the same event or not. The other earthquake that I want to mention is the 1755 earthquake in Lisbon, the capital city of Portugal. At 9:40 in the morning, Saturday, November 1st, All Saints' Day, the earthquake struck, lasting for somewhere between 3 to 6.5 minutes and causing fissures 16 feet wide in Lisbon's city center. Because of the location of the epicenter of the earthquake, the sea receded and revealed lost cargo and shipwrecks. But about 40 minutes after the earthquake first struck, a tsunami engulfed the harbor and downtown area. It was followed by two more waves, and candles that were lit in homes and churches in the city for All Saints' Day were knocked over, starting a fire that eventually turned into a firestorm, causing the city to burn for hours. The earthquake in 1755 was so large that it was felt throughout Europe as far as Finland and North Africa, and some sources say as far as Greenland and the Caribbean. In 2015, researchers determined that the waves of the tsunami from Lisbon's earthquake may have reached the coast of Brazil, as letters sent from the Brazilian authorities at the time described damage and destruction caused by gigantic waves. When all was said and done, about 85% of Lisbon's buildings were destroyed from the earthquake, tsunami, or the subsequent fire. Places like the Opera de Tejo, that opened only 6 months before the earthquake, burned to the ground. The Royal Ribeira Palace was destroyed, along with the Royal Library and hundreds of works of art. Major churches were also destroyed, namely the Lisbon Cathedral, the Basilicas of Sao Paulo, Santa Catarina, São Vicente de Fora, and the Misericordia Church. The Royal Hospital of All Saints, which was the largest public hospital at the time, in the Rocio Square, was consumed by fire, and hundreds of patients burned to death. The Carmo Convent was one of the few buildings that was destroyed that day that still has ruins that are preserved to this day. In Lisbon, Portugal, the royal family and the prime minister survived the earthquake, and both launched efforts to rebuild the city, and in less than a year, the debris was cleared of the city. Still, the earthquake had a wide range of effects on the city. Because it happened on All Saints' Day, along with the destructions of almost every important church in the city, many saw the earthquake as a manifestation of divine judgment. Economically, it was estimated in 2009 that the earthquake cost Portugal between 32 and 48% of its GDP. Voltaire even used the earthquake in Candide as a counterexample to the world being closely supervised by a benevolent deity. Jean-Jacques Rousseau also used the earthquake as an argument against the cities as part of his desire for a more naturalistic way of life. Within the Assassin's Creed universe, these two events and their cause was discussed and seen within Assassin's Creed Rogue. Sometime before November 1751, the St. Dominique Brotherhood of Assassins came across the Van Eyck manuscript and an issue data cache that was known as a precursor box, which would show the assassins what they believed to be an Isu temple that held a piece of Eden. The mentor, Francois Mackendal, sent a man by the name of Vendiretti to retrieve whatever he could find within the temple. Vendiretti would reach the center of the temple on November 21st, 1751, and attempted to take the item that sat on the pedestal before him. As soon as he removed the artifact, an earthquake shook the ground and killed thousands. Vendiretti was killed at the hands of Master Templar Lawrence Washington before he could escape, and the quake and following tsunami that hit Port-au-Prince allowed the Templars to steal the manuscript and box, taking them towards New York, with Adewale giving chase. The colonial assassins discovered that Lawrence Washington, a high-ranking Templar, had the manuscript and sent Shea Cormac to retrieve it and to assassinate him. Before Shea could take Washington's life in July 1752, he found out that Washington had sent the manuscript with James Wardrop, with the task to translate the mysterious language written on it, and sent the box with Samuel Smith, with the task of activating the box. It would take 2 years, but Shea eventually assassinated both Smith and Wardrop, recovering the manuscript and the box for the assassins. After retrieving the artifacts, Shea met with Hope Jensen and Benjamin Franklin in an attempt to use the artifacts. After using a lightning storm to electrify the box, a hologram erupted from the box, showing the world and highlighting an area within Lisbon, Portugal. Assassin mentor Achilles Davenport then sent Shea to Lisbon to find the location that the hologram showed, because he knew the city well. Arriving to Lisbon on November 1st, 1755, Shea searched the Carmel convent for the Isu temple. While the convent was celebrating All Saints' Day, Shea entered a cavern that was eventually led to a hexagonal column that, when Shea approached, would sink into the floor, revealing a spiked ball that Shea believed to be a piece of Eden. When he removed it from the pedestal, the cavern started to fall apart, causing a great earthquake that leveled the city. After using the ship that was waiting for him in the harbor, Shea confronted Achilles about the earthquake that happened in Lisbon, just like it had happened in Port-au-Prince. Achilles retorted with the assumption that, because it was a delicate mission, that Shea must have made a mistake with the artifact. The other master assassins stood with Achilles, and after Shea sat with the conversation, decided that even though Achilles was mentor, that he couldn't stand by and let him search for more of these temples. After stealing the manuscript, Shea left the Brotherhood and was shot in the back. Over the next few years, Shea became a Templar and began to hunt his old friends. In June of 1758, Shea presented a theory of the nature and function of these temples to then Templar Grand Master Hatham Kenway, describing them like roots of a tree that hold the earth together, and if you remove the artifact, you have an accident, like what had happened in Port-au-Prince or Lisbon. By October 1759, the assassins had recreated the experiment that showed the hologram from the box. This experiment led them to a third temple within the Arctic, where Achilles and Liam O'Brien started to prepare an expedition to the site, and in March 1760, Shea and Hatham caught up with them in the Arctic temple itself. When at the artifact's pedestal, Achilles admitted that he was wrong, and even though he started to understand the purpose of the temple, an argument broke out when Shea and Hatham appeared. Liam, upset over the death of Hope, led to a fight that caused Liam to knock the artifact off its pedestal, causing an earthquake. Fighting their way out of the temple that would lead to Liam's death, Shea came across Hatham beating Achilles and ended up stopping him from killing Achilles. Appealing to the logic that now Achilles is a mentor without a brotherhood, that he is harmless, but now that he knows the truth about the temples, he can keep the assassins from continuing their search for them. After Hatham crippled Achilles, he charged Shea with finding the box, admitting that it could take the rest of his life. Shea does eventually find the box on December 27, 1776, at the Royal Palace at Versailles, in the hands of Charles Dorian. Shea assassinated Dorian, who then alluded to the Templars' business in the American colonies being undone by Ratagahaton. Shea responded that the Templars should start a revolution of their own. Then he took the box and presumably left to deliver it to Hatham. An interesting note, at least for me, is that the temples were never named within Assassin's Creed Rogue. Shortly after the release of Rogue, the Assassin's Creed Wiki coined the term Seismic Temple, but it wasn't canonized until the release of the Essential Guide. Looking at what we know about these temples and their artifacts, we really don't know what they do. Are they holding the earth together like Shea speculates? Or is it the destruction of the artifact that causes the destruction? As of right now, it's hard to tell. I do think that linking the two large historical earthquakes of the 1750s together with these Isu temples that caused them was a great idea. When you take something that seems coincidental and craft a story with it, it's always good in my book. If there's one thing that bothers me about how the earthquake of Lisbon is presented, there was absolutely no tsunami. I find it very hard to believe that if there was a tsunami, Shea would not have been able to return to the American colonies. His ship would have been destroyed. There would have been no way he could have gotten out of the harbor. It's just one of those little things that kind of annoy me, but I can understand the idea of rewriting the story to where the tsunami never happened and that it could be just a way of misinterpreting history and lying in public record. The other thing that I find really interesting is when Shea compares them to a tree. I know it seems like it might be strange to think, but that comparison might mean there is a tie to Assassin's Creed Valhalla here, in the form of Yggdrasil, the world tree. Tying these ideas together would make for a great link between the two games, and even the vision that Ratagahaton saw of him flying as a bird within the roots of a tree. As of right now, it's hard to tell if this is going to be something we see revisited, but I would not be surprised if there is more than 3 of these kinds of temples within the world. Unless we see them within Valhalla, I think too much time has passed to make finding these temples a priority within the stories that are being told. Thank you for joining me today. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for new episodes. If you love the Visions of the Past podcast, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have any questions about Assassin's Creed or topics that you'd like me to cover, please feel free to hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at visions_AC. And you can find those links in this episode's show notes. Until next time, my assassin friends, make sure to follow the creed. And to those Templars listening, may the Father of Understanding guide you.